instant gratification isn't a sustainable strategy in business if you want long-term success. With that being said, if you can accelerate achieving diverse levels of success in an effective way, then that, my friends, turns into a competitive advantage. According to Zippia, there are approximately 12 to 24 million e-commerce businesses globally around the world, with 2.5 million of them residing in the United States alone. The popularity of online businesses is exploding each and every day, with easier access to the internet, improved technology from a server standpoint, the limitless possibilities of the internet provide new access to expanded opportunities to grow and prosper as an online entrepreneur. With all this information as a backdrop, what if I told you I had a way for all of you to build a 6 to 7 figure business under an hour by following 3 simple steps? If I've tweaked your interest in any way, this conversation I had with Allan Miles is one that you cannot afford to miss. Miles is an online business consultant who has spent more than 15 years in the field of recruitment. Now, he works in the online fitness space, helping coaches build their businesses through 3 simple steps. Miles is also adamant that this strategy and approach can help any entrepreneur gain clarity, experience success, and see their business blossom to heights they couldn't ever imagine. And he also says that building a relationship in business is the key cornerstone to sustainable success. Miles joined me this week all the way from the UK to provide some international business perspective on how to run and operate a thriving business online. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Great to see you today, and happy Friday to you, my friend. I'm excited to learn how to help people improve their business prospects. Great to see you today, and thank you so very, very much for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Allan, I'm wondering if you can tell me, to start our conversation, how you help businesses really move the needle forward, and give me sort of a 360-degree view of what makes you so fabulous, my friend.
For me, I think it's about simplifying what we do as business owners. I think for most people, we're looking to run successful small businesses. We're not looking to build mega corporations. And so often, I think the people I work with, they have very complex processes, and we just want to simplify things. So for me, it's about breaking a business down and understanding, do we have a couple of key things in place? I mainly work with coaches and consultants and helping them with their business. So it's about breaking it down into 3 key areas: attention, their offers, and then retention and referral. So we have first of all, that first piece of where are you getting your eyeballs? Like who's looking at your stuff? And then it's about looking at what are you selling and how are you positioning that? And then it's about, are you delivering a fantastic result that people want to stay forever and they want to refer people? So it's about creating then that cycle that you essentially just rinse, repeat with that cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Alan, you said that you could show any businesses in under an hour how to build a remote business that'll produce multi six figures a year in their first year of make in business without any money. So I know that that's part of that process as well. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it really boils down to in that 60 minutes. First of all, it's about helping them to understand what's going to be their attention source, because everyone gets very wrapped up with social media. And I think social media is very powerful and can help a lot of people and a lot of businesses, but it isn't the only means. Obviously, podcasts are fantastic, blogs are fantastic. Then it's about looking at, well, hold on a minute. Does your business need to operate fully online, or is it a local business? In which case, we can then look at local attraction of networking events, being involved in the local community. It's really about, first of all, nailing that attention process, having one clear process, mapping that process out step by step, then doing the same with your offer and your sales process so that it's step by step, one clear thing, and then understanding what are you delivering, how do you deliver it, and then how are you going to get referrals and retention. And that maps out across 60 minutes. Then it's about the implementation of it, and really being consistent with it. And to give you an example, if you can book, let's say, so I mainly work in the high ticket space. So if you have an offer that's at least $2,500, so $2,500, if you can book one call a day, if only half of those people showed up and you can close 1 in 3 of the half that's left, you've got $113,000 a year. So really we're looking at, the question becomes a much simpler question. How do I book one call a day? So 5 calls per week. Out of the 8 billion people on planet Earth, how do I find 5 people in a week? And then you only have the expectation that 2.5 of them are going to show up. And you're going to close 1 in 3, and that will get you to 113,000 in revenue a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, you brought up something that I wholeheartedly believe in when it comes to business in terms of networking. It's the lifeblood of business, and I always say that life is a constant game of networking, and especially for online entrepreneurs. How important do you think the power of networking really is to the viability of their business?
Saying, isn't there? Like, the more hands you shake, the more money you make. And it's a bit cheesy, but it's true. And I think networking is one of those things that, by nature, I'm an introvert. So the thought of going into a room of people, there was a point in my career that would scare me. And I'd be like, I'm introverted. I don't want to do that. People misunderstand that networking doesn't have to be big, large rooms of people where you're handing out business cards, whether that's virtually or face to face. It can be networking one-to-one. So what the conversation we're having right now, this is networking. This is me and you building a relationship. And yes, it's a much slower way to network. But I think if you're somebody who is shy, or you're afraid of being in like overwhelming places, like a Zoom room filled with 400 people, that's a scary proposition, then focus first of all on understanding how to have a conversation one-to-one and then build it from there. But networking is the single most important thing in your business, which is why marketing and getting attention is so important, because marketing, networking, like interchangeable to a degree, like getting known, that's more important than anything that you can sell, because if nobody knows you, you can't sell anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, Alan, I know that you spent 15 years in the recruiting space, working with some of the biggest brands in the UK, and then you ventured out on your own and created 2 independent recruitment companies. companies from scratch and grew them to 7 figures in just over 12 months, my friend. So tell me about making the leap and how you think recruiting has changed over the years.
Yeah. So for me, the recruitment industry, it's an interesting space. I've worked in a couple of different sectors, from technical to then working in more of a like the normal high street recruitment. So industrial workers, office workers, those types of things. And I think that like taking that leap to venture out on my own, it was something that, so I did it first of all in the early part of my career, and it was more of a lifestyle business. We focused just on placing permanent candidates. So essentially, for anyone who doesn't understand how the industry works, if you as a recruiter place somebody in a permanent job, you get paid a fee, and it's usually a couple of $1,000 or pounds, depending on what it is. And that's essentially how you flow the business. The other type of business, which is what I then later moved into, is more of the temporary labor market. So for each hour worked, you make margin per hour. And it can be anything from 50 to 60 pence per hour, all the way up to 10, 15, 20 pounds an hour. It really depends on the worker. That taking that leap for me into that second business, it was, I don't know, it felt good to me. And it was something that it's only in hindsight, looking back, that I understand why it felt good. And I had essentially built my knowledge base. I had built my network, and that's what allowed me to go from 0 to 7 figures in 12 months. I had a great team that came with me, but it was really that networking that had happened in those previous 10 years that had allowed me to build up that Rolodex of contacts that allowed me to start on day one, reach out to some of the bigger employers in our local area, and in the UK to a degree, to say, I have something new. I'd love to be able to serve you. And they say yes. That wasn't luck. It wasn't fluke. It was 10 years of hard work that allowed me to then be able to launch my own thing. And I think if we look more broadly just at business, this is something I see with a lot of my clients. The ones who have built that foundation, that knowledge and that network, are the ones that once you give them the pieces of the puzzle of this is how you launch your own business, they're the ones who grow super quickly, because they already have the hardest thing, which is the attention. They already have those connections. They already have that trust. Now just about putting it in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Alan, one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you today was because outside of hosting this podcast, work with businesses and organizations to help them amplify their hiring of folks with disabilities. Because, Alan, I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. Simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally, and it's important to me to level the playing field for folks with disabilities as well. So tell me the importance of infusing individuals with disabilities into the workforce, and how helpful do you think the online space is to doing that and to accomplishing that goal as well?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, in the UK, we have specific regulation around making sure we have diversity in the workforce. I think that it's something that, from my perspective, like everyone shows up slightly differently. And when somebody has like a disability, I think that there's a tendency sometimes to not know how to react and how to engage that person into the workforce. But in my experience, the companies that have engaged and really embraced not just regulation, but actually embraced like bringing a diverse team, but bringing them in for the right reasons, because they are great in a certain area, they have a great skill set or a great knowledge or a great way of thinking. That's what allows, I think, companies to really innovate and to really grow outside of that normal curve. And I think the online world really just, like, I mean, it's going through its infancy, really, there isn't really any regulation in the online space at this point in time. But I do think that the online world in general, like, allows you to be whoever you want to be. And it presents a lot more opportunities because it removes any kind of barrier for most people. And I think that's where AI and technology, the more it continues to advance, the more it allows you to get across what it is that you're trying to express and trying to create. Because I think there's a couple of ways of looking at this. Like, obviously, like disability, it makes the work, can make finding work and being in the workplace more challenging and difficult. But also, when you look at it from that perspective of somebody who is trying to express an idea or is trying to express a concept, but they just can't physically, they don't have the vocabulary or they don't have the skill set to be able to express that idea. The way the online world is now with automation and AI and the advancements, it allows everyone to really get across those gold nuggets that they have deep inside. It allows you to get your skill sets out there and your ideas out there. And then it creates a really, I think, collaborative space that brings people together that otherwise would never have been able to come together. Again, like this podcast, what would be the likelihood without the online world that I'd be flying all the way to the States or you'd be flying all the way to the UK for the 30-minute podcast? It just wouldn't have happened. But because of the online space, here we are.
Yeah, technology is a wonderful space to connect people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it can be used for good or bad, but more people than not seem to be using it for good, and I think it has created a lot of innovation inside of the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And Allan, I know that you work with coaches also in the fitness space as well, and I know that you've pivoted to that space online as well and helping coaches build their businesses. And certainly the online fitness space is very vast and can be overwhelming to some people. So tell me about the importance of finding sort of your niche when it comes to the online fitness space and business in general. How important do you think that is?
Yeah, I think finding your tribe and finding where you fit, I think is a really important thing. And I think that when we're looking at the online fitness space, I've worked with a lot of people. We've worked with over 300 coaches so far. And one of the things that comes up a lot is that they feel they have to fit in one of just a couple predefined niches. So I have to work with either parents, or I have to work with busy professionals, or I have to do like something specific. And the first thing that I always say is, you don't have to do anything. Like, it needs to be something that really aligns with you. So it could be that you love gut health. It could be that you love working specifically in movement patterns and doing parkour. It could be that you really love focusing in on bodybuilding prep. Like, you can be really specific, but the thing that's important is that it has to be something that aligns with you, because the one thing that as human beings we're very good at is flushing out people who are not being genuine. They're not necessarily lying, but they're not being true to themselves. You're not going to stick with it long term. You're simply counting down the days until you give up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Allan, I don't have to tell you that small businesses are really the backbone of today's economy. So I'm fascinated to ask you, what do you think is the future of small business, and how big of a role do you think the online space will play in its sustainability as well?
Okay, yeah. So I think small business is absolutely critical to success with all economies, and I think that the more time goes by, I actually think small businesses will continue to flourish, and I think there's going to be a lot more in the way of micro business, so that kind of level underneath just small business and the benefit there is people being able to be very diligent with what they do. They don't have the big corporate structure, and it's going to allow for much more innovation. I think that online fundamentally will play a big role in all business moving forward. I don't think that online is the only option for businesses. I still think there needs to be a high street where people can go to shops. I still think there needs to be restaurants, obviously, where people can go out and experience things. But I think that the online world very much will play a big role in shaping the success of the offline world, because we spend so much of our lives connected online now that really we get most of our ideas and our understanding of what is something new. So let's say, for example, you're thinking of going traveling, you're scrolling, and all of a sudden you see a video about about Paris, and in that video about Paris breaks down the 3 best bakeries to go to, the 2 best restaurants in town, the best bar to go to. Well, now all of a sudden I've sat there, consumed that information. I don't know the layout of Paris. So now on my list of places to go are these places that have been recommended. So it's a case of really businesses starting to understand the importance of not only promoting their own thing, but using the power of influencer marketing and also location-based marketing to really drive their businesses forward. So I think it will play a really big role.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, just one follow-up on that point. You shared with me earlier how to grow businesses under an hour, but I'm also curious to ask you to expand upon how businesses can really avoid the pitfalls of becoming stagnant when it comes to offering their online presence online. So how do you think businesses can remove the pitfalls of being stagnant online and continuing to remain relevant?
Yeah, I think it takes effort, definitely. I think the days of just being able to put out some generalized content or have just a website, I think those days are over. And I think that's what causes businesses to go stagnant, to think that they can do something once and then never need to change it again. It's like having a shop and not refurbishing it ever. Like all shops will refurbish, they'll move things, they'll get new stock in, like the shop changes. So I think the key to avoiding stagnation is being able to remain on that curve, understanding what's new, like what is coming, what's the next new platform, having a presence there, but also understanding how are your consumers, like how are your customers engaging with things. How can you get connected with your customers in a way that feels like home to them? Because we are creatures of habit as human beings. And if we are asked to do something that doesn't feel very natural to us or doesn't feel in alignment with how we kind of like to now be, well, then we're not going to do it. Which means this is why shops on the high street started to go away, because they were asking us to not shop online. They were asking us to go to places that we didn't really want to go and work in a way that we didn't really want to be. So it's really about that constant innovation and understanding that the customer is king and that we are going to have to continue to navigate and continue to innovate to continue to remain relevant. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Alan, I'm a big believer in diversity of perspective brings a strength to businesses. We talked earlier about the importance of always being a constant learner. So tell me about your views on a diversity of perspective and really using it as a strength and a competitive advantage for a business when they embrace the concept of diversity of perspective.
Yeah, I think having an understanding that like there's lots of different perspectives out there, and understanding that there isn't just one way to do things. There's lots of ways. I think if you're a small business, you absolutely have to operate in a way that's in an alignment with you, and that in turn will attract your customers to you, a very specific type of customer. If you are looking more broadly at business and you're wanting to attract a much more diverse group of people, then you need to understand how do they think, what are they engaging in, and what are the different angles that you can look at with regards to creating that diversity. Because just because your customer has always been a certain way doesn't mean that you can't attract an entire new generation of people to your product and to your brand. And I think there's lots of companies that have taken that diversity, like, of perspective approach and really looked and said, okay, well, how else can we remain relevant? I think luxury brands are a really good example. So if you look at the likes of Gucci and Louis Vuitton, well, they're very traditional brands at heart, and they have very traditional products that haven't changed for years, but they still manage to pull in the next generation of people as well as the old generation of people. And that's because of their ability to have diversity in how they approach the different generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Allan, I know you're a family man and your family is very important to you. So tell me about how having a present family life can make you a better business owner.
Yeah, I think it's an X factor in many ways. And in the online space, I hear a lot from a lot of young people who don't have children, who see that as a benefit of, well, I can just focus on business and I can just go and hustle. To me, having a family is the X factor when building a business, because it gives you not only a very clear purpose far above yourself, like you're doing this now for a unit, not just for yourself. You have as the leader of my family, like I have a responsibility to take care of them financially, but it also gives me a very clear focus, because I know that, as an example, my children are only going to be young for a certain period of time. Every minute that I take away from spending time with them has to be used wisely to continue to build the business. I have no time to waste because I have somewhere far more important to be than just sat at my MacBook not really doing anything. And the other thing that I think is a real X factor when you have a family is it gives you perspective. So inside of business, there's good days and there's bad days. But the reality is, when you can walk back into your home and get a hug from your children or from your wife, and you know that you are loved and appreciated for the effort you're doing, like, that's all you need at the end of the day. Like, yes, we need to have success and we want to have success, but you can have a bad day where you lose a client or your Facebook account gets closed down or something terrible happens or seems like it's terrible happens at work. If you have nothing else but work, well, you're going to sit in that pain until something good happens in work. If you have a family to go home to, you already have that higher purpose, and you can just put things into a bit more perspective, I think. So I think it really gives you perspective, focus, and purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Allan, if I gave you $1 million to produce a commercial on business ethics and the importance of having high standards in business, what do you think would be the climax of that commercial, and what would you focus on during the content of that commercial as well?
It's a good question. I don't know. I'm not certainly not a somebody who's going to be amazing at creating commercials. But to me, when you think of business ethics, what are they? Well, it's about having integrity. It's about respect. It's about loyalty, and it's about having purpose, I think. So for me, it's about something that really starts to convey like that message of like wholesome business. And I think business a lot of the time has quite a mixed reputation. And I think if you can really look at business from that wholesome perspective of that family business, or people operating from a place of value and actually a place of service, that's the angle where business really thrives. And I think that's where business ethics are at their best, when we're working from a place of service rather than a place of need. And I think this is where sometimes business ethics get blurred, is that people see it as an opportunity to exploit somebody or a group of people, and they need that money. If you don't need that money, but you're doing it because it's the right thing to do and you're trying to grow something, that's where ethics really come into their own. So I can kind of imagine like an advert where you've got like a nice busy city, and you've got like a professional businessman or woman walking down the street. The sun's coming up. It's early in the morning. He's got his cup of coffee. He's kind of walking on his way to the office. You have like that motivational background music with a nice female voiceover. like really explaining the importance of ethics. Like that to me, I think starts to represent the wholesome image of business and what we want business to be. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, when you close your computer at the end of the day and really decompress, I think it's important to always find your inner center in business and really reconnect with yourself. So when you're outside of the office and away from work, how do you reconnect with your inner center?
Yeah. So for me, I have like a couple of really key things that I go through. So um, happiness is I think is something, or joy is something that most people are always searching for. And for me, it was something that I definitely spent a large part of my 20s looking for. It's like, how can I be happy? Like, where do I find happiness? And I noticed that when I only focused in on work, it actually stopped me from finding happiness because you're always trying to do more. So for me, I have a routine in place where my day starts and it's focused around me and my health, both mentally and physically. So that's learning something new. That could be something as simple as reading a couple of pages of a book or listening to an audio book, getting some workout, like getting a workout in, fueling my body with something moderately healthy and getting some sun exposure. So just outside, it doesn't have to be, I live in the UK, so it's not often super sunny. So just getting outside and getting that vitamin D. Then for me, it's about understanding that once you've taken care of health, now you show up and you take care of wealth. That's your business day to day. And then once you've done that, the next thing that's really important is relationships. So that can be family, friends, your partner. It's really about having time and making time in your life to have relationships. Because if you don't have those relationships, that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing when it comes to chasing that happiness and finding that inner peace. For me, I close my laptop at the end of the day. I take a couple of minutes to decompress because I work from home. So my office is slightly removed from the house. But you used to have a commute. Like you used to have 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour to drive home to decompress. Now you walk straight out of wherever you're working, if you work at home, into normal life. So I think it's important to take a couple of minutes to consciously gather yourself. And then as you change identities from a business person into a husband or a wife or a brother or a mother or whatever, or father, whatever you are, as you step into that, you have to then be present in that moment. And that's what I think allows me to really find my center and actually really find that joy in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, I'm coming to you. This it's morning for me here in Canada on Friday, and I know that you're based in the UK, and I know that the coronation of King Charles is this weekend, and I also know that there's a lot more to do in Britain than just obsess about the royals. So tell me about how you have fun in Britain and what you like to do away from work, my friend.
Yeah, so for me, it's about days out with the family. So we're lucky we live by the beach. So in the summer, it's nice to go down to the beach. But even in the winter, we like to take our dog for a walk down there. Family days out, just like anyone else. And for me, I have I'm actually a passionate American football fan. So I support the Dallas Cowboys for all the sins that I have. So for me, it's about, I think it's important once you have a family that you still have something that is yours as an individual. Me and my wife, we like to travel quite a lot. So we're very fortunate that we have a good network around us with grandparents that take care of our children. We can be in Europe within an hour. So we can fly from where we live to Paris within the hour. So we can get to mainland Europe pretty quickly as well. And it's nice to just have those really short micro breaks where it's one night, maybe 2 nights. You're away. You get to just be a couple instead of always having to kind of be the parent. Allows you to recharge and then come back. And I think that's part of it for me, is exploring new things, experiencing new things. And this can be big things or little things. It could be traveling the world, or it could be sitting down and discovering a new series on Netflix. Like, as long as you're doing something in an environment that stimulates you and there's connection there, to me, that's what life is really about.
Yeah, it's important to have diversity of life perspective too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, my final question for you today has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think depending on the season of life I've been in, depending on where in my life I've been, if someone had asked me that question, I think there would be a slightly different, well, quite a different answer at points. For me now, at this point, I'm approaching my late 30s, and I legacy for me is actually about um, being remembered as somebody who cared and as somebody who inspired others to surpass their own expectations. And I think that's the thing that I take the most pride and passion in, not how much money I make, not what car I drive or any of that stuff, but it's actually more that I believed so much in somebody that it gave them belief to go above and beyond anything that they thought possible. And that's what I want for my children. Like for me, I believe it's about providing your children with a platform above your own so that they can springboard off further into the future. And we apply that principle with our clients as well. So for me, I would want my legacy to be that I was remembered as somebody who cared about the people around him, but more than anything, inspired them to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Alan, tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Best thing to do if you reach out to me on the website. So it's allanmiles.com. So ALLAN miles, like the distance, MILES.com. You can connect with me on all my socials from there, or you can drop me a message directly on the website. Always open to a conversation, always happy to help people wherever we can. We offer a lot of free resources to people wanting to start a business or who already have a business. So reach out and let's see how we can help you.
Fantastic. Well, Alan, I sincerely appreciate you engaging in conversation about your business expertise and helping people scale and launch successful businesses, my friend. Your work in the space of entrepreneurship and time on my behalf is most appreciated. And I want to wish you a good weekend and thank you for joining me on this Friday. It's most appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.